how's it going? I am LazerDude, and this
And I'm ChrisFilmBaker, 123.
is my bro, and we've been just a little going a little stir crazy these days since the whole coronavirus is just nuts and stupid and lame, and you want to find out more about how it's affecting my life, I did a video series on that. But we thought, let's think about something positive, and we were wanting to do a list together.
Yes, that's right. And so we've decided to single out a director and pick his 10 best films.
Chris is a guy who really respects directors, and I just love movies. We thought it would be a perfect thing to do. Honestly, we didn't care if it'd be perfect. We were like, what do we got to do? What list can we put together? And we eventually landed on this: the top 10 best Steven Spielberg films. He is probably, if not the most influential filmmaker of our time, one of the top 3. I mean, if he's not the most, he's basically up there. I mean,
it's someone we all look up to, and we want to be him. Directors want to try and strive to even come close. So he is the top filmmaker in Hollywood.
And it's so amazing because the different types of movies that he has. When you watch a Scorsese film, it's going to be a deep, dark movie that has you questioning your inner morality. But from Steven Spielberg, you can go from Nazi slaughtering Jews to Peter Pan flying in the air, thinking happy thoughts. He runs the whole gamut of all types of genres. And it's impossible to put a distinct feel on what a Spielberg movie is. The only thing that maybe you can put a spin on it is the way that the people act and the people react to things. It all feels very genuine. So yes, we decided to put our top 10, and this is going to be a long list. This is actually technically the second time we did this list. We tried it on something else to record this, but all of Chris's audio was cut out. But we've made some changes, apparently, so it's a good thing we got the first list out of the way. That was the test run, and now here it is. So here we go with the top 10 best Steven Spielberg films of all time. Well, the ones he directed. That's a very distinguishing point, because if we go to the ones he produced, we could be here with a top 100 list, okay? So top 10 ones that he directed, the best of all time. Here we go. Well, okay, our favorites. Here we go. Number 10 on my list, we got The Adventures of Tintin. Now, this movie is such a fun adventure movie, and it is one of the few times where I feel like the uncanny valley of Robert Zemeckis' style of animation, where you make them almost realistic-ish. I think this is where I think it actually works, because let's face it, you're never going to actually have characters that were written or drawn in a book actually jump off the screen in a realistic sense. I mean, the closest is J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, but beyond that, you're never going to have the real-life version come to life. But here, when you use the photo-realistic animation and use it to bring these cartoon drawings to life, it's so incredible. I mean, I love all the characters. Jamie Bell is Tintin. He's great. He's a lot of fun. I love that they keep the violence in there. There's gunfight. There's fisticuffs. There's a bunch of different stuff going on. And Andy Serkis as the captain is just is another great motion capture performance. He is the king of it, after all. So it's like Andy Serkis is so great as Captain Haddock. He's so much fun throughout the entire movie, being a drunk, blabbery mess, but still always having a great time with him. I think The Adventures of Tintin is just a fun ride.
Yeah, I think so too. When I first saw it in the theaters, I was blown away by it. They even have a cameo. Steven makes an appearance looking just like him. He plays like a sultan or someone. And,
I think it's like is that the only Spielberg cameo? I don't know too many. I don't know any others. And if they are, maybe it's just his hand accidentally got in the shot or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the casting all around is great, and that was just a lot of fun. I think the reason why it's a little lower on this list for me is A, the quality of Steven Spielberg's films. But B, I think some of the fight scenes are a little over the top. I'm just like, okay, dial it back a little bit. You know, not too much, but a little bit. But yeah. And the climax, I think, is a little... It's a little weird as like it becomes like a sword fight between two cranes. But still fun, but a little weird for me.
Great storytelling at its finest. Okay, my number 10 is a favorite of mine, and it has been watched over the years, and it is E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Really? Now this one wasn't
Yes.
on your list last time.
Well, I brought it on this time because it definitely beats Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom would have been 11 on my list.
Fair.
But E.T. is number 10, and it is a fun, enjoyable family movie. And there's so much you got going. The relationship with E.T. and Elliot is amazing. The relationship with the family is awesome.
They all sound like real kids.
Yeah, you gotta love the brother too. Like he's just a big brother, and
I don't know, Chris. As the younger brother in this dynamic here, I felt like I didn't like the older brother because he reminded me a lot of you picking on me as a kid. You know, that's what I got reminded of. But
yeah, but he comes around.
I think E.T. is definitely one of his better, like, well-made films. I'll spoil your head. It's not on my list, but I think that's just because this is a list of the favorites. These are our favorites. I'm not measuring quality, but I think it's just E.T. though, what it has going for it, amazing atmosphere. I love all the small stuff that they don't outright tell you, but allow you to pick up on. You know, why are they on Earth? You see them gathering plants. They're gathering plants so that they can bring it to their planet. So maybe and stuff like that. You know, the little details like that. And yeah, I do like all the crazy powers that they give ET and how fun he is, and yeah.
And they make him really smart. You know, he makes a device that he can contact his family, and so that they find him and bring him home. And I mean, it is just, the score is terrific.
That's true.
And the build-up of the climax. I mean, they're on the bikes, and they flying with the bikes. I mean, you gotta love this movie.
It is a movie I think best enjoyed as a kid. Not saying that you can't enjoy it as an adult too, but I think as a kid, it really makes your imagination soar, and you feel like, oh, I wish I could do that. It really makes you feel like you are in the seat with E.T.
Yeah. So it is definitely Spielberg's top 10.
Number 9 on my list is a classic from him. It's Hook. It is Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman playing the story of Peter Pan with the question, what if Peter Pan grew up? It is a movie that I feel is another one of those films that make you love it as a kid. When you first travel to Neverland, and it's like the way the whole world is set up, your mind is blown. It feels so real. And that's just something that you don't really get with modern day Peter Pan movies, despite the fact that modern days ones mostly all suck. But it's just like, it's all a CGI world. You feel the fakeness. You feel it's not real. Where when they were on the dock with all the pirates, I felt it was real. I felt like I was in Neverland, in this wondrous world and all the amazing things that were going on. I think that Hook has a unique world, a unique atmosphere, a few 90s cliches, you know, that hasn't necessarily aged well, but the story itself, I think, still holds up.
Well, I just have one question. Why so low, bro?
Well, I think it's because one thing, quality of the other films, and I think this is because of those 90 cliches. I didn't like Peter Banning in the first half of this movie. I felt he was a jerk, and it wasn't like a Tony Stark thing, like a likable jerk. When he yells, "Well, everyone just shut up!" I'm just like, dude, calm down, you doofus. And yeah, but I do like the other characters. I do like what he becomes at the end. I do like the lesson he's like. You have to go through that to get to the end where he has his transformation. But I didn't like him in the beginning, so I was I think in the beginning I felt a little bit dragged along with it. But once we're in Neverland, it's just a ton of fun, and we got Dante Bosco, the voice of Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. He plays Rufio, and he's fun. He's a lot of fun, and yeah. So that would be my reasoning for why it's so low, bro.
Well, I like it. I love it, and I think that there's a lot going on for it. I think you have a fantastic portrayal of Robin Williams playing Peter Pan. He plays the old man so well. Not old, but he's grown up. And he plays an adult trying to tackle 2 kids and a job. And sure, it's been outdated storyline, but in the 90s, this was actually pretty original for its time.
I mean, true. I mean, there's not many stories that we get to find out what happens after in the fairy tale. There's not many that we ever really find out after it's over what happened next. And this we get that all the time now with a lot of these Disney movies with the sequels and whatnot. Not saying they're good, but we get a lot of that now. Like what happens after Happy Ever After. But this is really one of the first ones to really do that. Like what happened when Peter Pan's story was over.
My number 9 for me is still artificial intelligence.
Still keeping AI on the list.
Yes, I'm still keeping AI on the list. People disagree with me on this. They say why. They ask about the ending, and I say I don't care. I love everything about it. It's a story about a robot that could love, and once he loves, the relationship between his mom, like, is he gonna ever see her again? That carries on so well. There's so much happens, and throughout the entire journey, like it's very counter Hollywood films where you think there's gonna be this happy ending. And it's one of those obscure endings if you haven't seen it, but it's definitely rewarding. I mean, it shows where the future could go, and it's very believable how they handled it. I mean, and even seeing where he's thinking that he can be the only one, and he sees another just like him. He gets mad because he thought he was original, So
here's what I'll say about AI. I remember actually loving it and probably having a lot more love for it than maybe you did back in the day. Or I don't know how you felt it back in the day, but I remember actually when I did my top 10 science fiction movies, it was on the list. I don't think it was too high, but it was on the list. I think that looking back, that's probably just less vocabulary for movies at the time. It's like, oh, this is a good one, right? And I owned 15, and I didn't want all the Star Wars movies on there. But but looking at it from my perspective, I think that the one thing that really stands out to me is Haley Joel Osment, who you and I have said is probably been the best child actor there has ever been. I mean,
yes,
in terms of the range of emotion and the types of characters you can play as a young child, he has played the best out of all of them. And I remember seeing this movie on television for the first time. It was just like on TV. And I remember not knowing what it was. Like, I didn't know what genre it was. I didn't know if he was going to become like a horror monster robot kid who's like, why won't you love me, mommy? You know, it's like I didn't know if that was going to be the way it was going or what. But I remember, like, so I felt uneasy with him at the beginning. But then when his character started developing more into the loving child, I was with him and I felt for him. And I really felt his emotions and felt the emotional journey with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll give the movie that. I think for a lot of the other stuff, it's all over the place, and I kind of really don't like the ending with now aliens. But besides that, I do enjoy the movie.
Well, I do too.
Number 8 on my list is Schindler's List. Now, this is why I say that this is our personal favorites, because if it was to talk about quality, the quality of movies, this would probably be a lot higher, if not number 1. I think the thing with me is like that it's not one of my top 10 favorites, or it's not one of my higher top 10 favorites because of how dark it is. This is not a movie you can watch a bunch. I only think I've really seen it once all the way through. Now, I own it, but I think that's because I respect it as a movie. It is a movie that is hard to watch because it is true. That's a real thing that sticks with you, is that the stuff that happened in this film, they're not making it up. This isn't a horrible thing that a writer wrote up to make it seem darker. This is stuff that really happened. They were treating these people's lives like cattle and shipping them off and burning them and killing them. And this one guy was able to use his charm and wit to save so many people. And I love that. And I love how Schindler himself, played by Liam Neeson, is not necessarily in the beginning out to save lives. In the end, he decides to do that, but it's not why he's doing it. And so it's like you got the point where he's like under suspicion from like the Nazis, and then you have like the Nazi officers defending him. Like, no, he's a good Nazi, just like us. But he's just that sort of charm. He's got him that good. He's that good, and that's why I think that's why I think it needs to be on there. It needs to be on the list because I respect it a lot, and it's definitely a movie that is just intense and is just well made all throughout.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I have not seen all of. I've seen quite a bit of it. I had to fast forward a lot of scenes because it's very disturbing and it's very raw and real. It's still in some of the scenes still ingrained in my head from the time that I saw it. I can understand that it's the movie that Steven Spielberg the best picture and best director, for that year. But I have a hard time with this one because of the graphic nature of it. When it's a movie that is really a kind of a downer, makes you really try to watch it 2 times, if you mean. So I will say that it's well crafted, well done, but just too much in my mind.
Fair enough.
Okay, my number 8 is a movie called Empire of the Sun.
Oh, yeah.
Movie.
Only the brightest, colorful ones for you. No movies that are downers about war.
Hey, this one has some downing moments. It's about a kid, and he loses his parents. But are they really lost, or will he see him again? You don't know. He goes through hell, basically, from different camps and different places in his journeys. And this is during the whole war. And man, this one stuck with me for a long time because
Mhm.
By the end of the movie, I felt like I had just been away from my parents for months on end, and I really feel like the movie brings you into a point where you feel like you're that character, you're the kid that's lost his family, and will he ever see again? And so, yeah, you feel for this kid, and the cinematography is great. The just everything about this is awesome. Uh, love the vision that Spielberg had for making like a war film that could be told from a kid's perspective.
You know, the
I,
thing
I don't
that's
think too many movies do that.
no, not usually. I mean, Jojo Rabbit is another one that I would say is an example, but that one's treating it a little more silly and
On the
having a little
lighter
bit more
side.
fun with it. But I think that Christian Bale, who is the who played the kid, because he was a kid. It's not just adult Christian Bale standing there like I can play any character I want. No, but there's a lot of scenes that stick with me, but I think the most is the ending when he is spoiler alert, when he is reunited with his parents, because like his parents are overjoyed and they're so happy and they're hugging him and he doesn't move. He just stands there with this blank expression on his face. And I remember that staying with me. Like I've only seen that movie once, but I remember that scene sticking with me, and I think the reason it did was because that was the first time I ever really realized that that kid has gone through some crap, and just because it's over doesn't mean it's over in here, you know. I mean, you're used to we're used to like kids going on these amazing, fantastic adventures in movies, and then at the end they're like, ah ha ha, it's all over, we're all safe now, la la la, smile, smile, smile. This kid went through some trauma, went through some horrible things, and it's gonna take a long time, maybe his entire life, struggling with those things that he went through. And that was
Mm-hmm.
a very poignant scene for me.
Yes. Yeah, and then there's a scene where he tries to bring a Japanese life, and that was brutal because there's blood going everywhere. Yeah, it's a war movie.
Yeah, you're not used to seeing kids die.
No.
All right, for me, we'll just keep this whole war movie train running because I have Saving Private Ryan next. Um, this is a movie that I like it so much because of how it doesn't glorify the war. This is like I remember Roger Ebert when he did his review on this. He said he made a war movie that didn't glorify war, and he thought that that was an impossible thing to do. But it really was great because like the mission that these guys are sent on, when you think about it for more than 5 minutes, you're risking 5 or 7 people's lives to save one guy because a bunch of his other brothers got killed. But like this is war, you know and it's just like the fact that these were real people, these soldiers were real people. When you find out, there's a bet going on of what Tom Hanks' character did before the war, and when you find out, it's like, wow, what? And I think he feels so real, and Matt Damon is so good as Ryan, because like you are waiting for this guy. You're like, oh my gosh, when are we going to get to this guy? And then you get to Matt Damon, and I love the way that he is portrayed, and he just gets so many good scenes. The action is terrifyingly good. I mean, the storming the beach of Normandy is one of the most terrifying things. That it's one of those
Absolutely.
movies that when you see that, we all ask ourselves the same question: would I've had the bravery to run? Would I've had the bravery to move forward? Would I've had the bravery while seeing all my friends die around me to push forward, or would I have just frozen?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a movie that is it's clear the amazing. Special effects, the shooting is so real. Just everything about it. It's actually one of those movies that the last time I saw it, I felt so pulled hard. I pulled direct. It was just torn because I know how graphic war is and how it doesn't make you good after. And part of the reason why this one wasn't on my list was because I struggle with movies you maybe feeling sad at the end. I struggle with those movies, so they don't really make my list. But this does have has a lot of believability. It's very intense and very graphic horror film. So my number 7 is a film that I really enjoy, and it is called The Adventures of Tintin. Now, I like this movie because I grew up with watching cartoon Tintin growing up.
Yeah, we did.
And, it was like you never thought you'd get action in a show, and you had all this fighting and stuff. And so going into the movie, I was like, okay, if there's one person that can do it, Spielberg is the one to do it. Because it's right as hell. It kind of feels a little bit like Indiana Jones. So I was thrilled when I saw it in the theaters. I saw it 2 shows in the theaters. Sherlock Holmes, Game of Shadows, and Tintin. Tintin is the better movie.
To be fair, Chris, it's a pretty low bar you're putting it up against.
Yes. Anyways, Tintin has everything going for it. It has like there's a mystery going around. There's like a hidden message in this ship that Tintin gets. And it's like everyone wants to find it, and interrogation and everything, and there isn't too much killing in this. Not too many people die.
There's a bit though. There's a cop or investigator or someone that dies in a drive-by.
Yeah, I don't even he dies. He shows up wounded or something. Anyways, I don't know how they did that, but they nailed the performances. Like Thompson, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost. They got to voice act for them.
Yeah, they were great.
Awesome. And they got Daniel Craig to play the villain. Like, smart choices. And I really wish they would make a sequel to this because it's been such a long time. But Peter Jackson, man, he's got to get on board here.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a deal where like Spielberg would direct the first one, then Peter would direct the next one. Where are you, Pete? Where are you? Certainly on a treadmill.
I can't say enough about the scene where the chase scene is amazing in this. Like, and they're all just trying to get this. I think it's basically a clue to get to, or maybe it's a map they're trying to get. But it is amazing, and then you got the hotel crashing down the slope, and it's in the car chases. Oh, it's amazing! It puts you right into the action, and that's why this movie is my number 8.
You mean your number 7?
Oh, can you cut that?
Nope.
That's why this movie is my number 7.
I think you made the exact same mistake last time we recorded this. Number 6 on my list is dun, 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 dun. Jurassic Park. What could possibly go wrong? It is Jurassic Park, and honestly, it's just one of those films that was a game changer. It was a game changer on so many levels because it was a game changer for CGI, but I think it was also a game changer in terms of how you handle monster movies. Is in in all fairness, the dinosaurs are basically giant monsters that are trying to kill everyone. But I think what I love that Spielberg did is that he made them animals. You know, they weren't just ravenous killers trying to go after the humans. They were animals. And that's what I loved about it, that they made them, you know, there's a scene where they spot the T-Rex, but the T-Rex has just killed this giant Gallimimus. And so they slowly walk away. But I'm like, well, if the T-Rex saw them, he wouldn't do anything. He just killed a Gallimimus. He has his meal. He's good. You know, it's like, that's the thing. It's like, they were predators. Like, the velociraptors weren't evil. They were just hunting, and they were smart, and they were cunning, and they were able to trap their prey, and they were great at it. And so, but on the same hand, that kind of makes it even more terrifying. You're just their food. You're just their dinner. And the way he handles the bringing dinosaurs to life at a theme park better than anyone could possibly ever do it. I mean, I feel like most of the time you just need a half explanation. It can be a BS explanation, but it just needs a half explanation. Probably it doesn't make sense for dinosaur DNA in mosquitoes, but when you're in the theater, you're like, sounds good to me, and that way it makes it all the more entertaining. There's so many scare scenes that made me jump out of my skin as a kid. The scene where she's like, Mr. Hamlet, I think we're back in business. I'm just like pissing my pants, you know? I am urinating in the pants, in the trousers. It is happening. Not really, but you know what I mean. It is like, there's so many scenes like that. Or, oh, Mr. Arnold. And it's an arm. There it is. It was just like,
you gotta hand it to them.
You really hand it to them in the way that they handle it. They're just so good at it.
Yeah, I gotta say that before Jurassic Park, they didn't have really a lot of monster movies. They had a Tyrannosaurus Rex and King Kong, but they were limited to what they could do in Hollywood movies. Yeah. For dinosaurs, and there'd never been one that was so graphically correct. I mean, it was believable. You thought they were animals. They moved around, and you're completely blown away that the dinosaurs were actually on the big screen.
Yeah, so the fact that they used a mixture of CGI and real, and they had a full T-Rex on that set, that made it like
animatronic T-Rex.
Yeah, animatronic, right, and not a real life one, obviously. It made it so much better because there was shots that you didn't know, or there were shots that you knew in your head were real, and then there were shots that were quick shots with CGI that weren't. But because you already accepted your fact that that was real in those longer scenes with the real T-Rex, that made those quick scenes not seem as fake. And you really bought it. And it was just the way that it's so funny because Spielberg laid out the groundwork for what you should do with CGI right then and there. You know, half CGI, maybe not even half, like seconds of CGI, and the majority as real and practical as possible. And I think that just made the whole movie great.
My number 6 is Minority Report, because it's a science fiction film that is unlike any other, and it has everything going for it. And the fact that it may be one of the first science fiction mysteries that actually is more mystery than science fiction in that regard. I love the fact that when you're following the storyline, you don't know how things are possible. You know, like that's the great thing about a mystery is it slowly oozes out, and what is the real story behind the crime that's being committed. And I think not only is the main character played by Tom Cruise amazing in the fact that he can take you through a number of scenes where he's trying to find out what's going on, and you're right there with him. And it is just maybe one of the most sophisticated science fiction films ever made.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot going for it, and I will say more than ever it's one of those films that you'll watch more than once because of the way the characters are and the way that they've brought the story to life, the way that they interact off of each other. And yeah, so I will say it is an awesome movie.
I just want to point out Tom Cruise's performance in this, because I think while he is an amazing actor, sometimes it's hard to see anything besides Tom Cruise himself. He's one of those larger-than-life actors, and so sometimes when you see a movie with Tom Cruise in it, you see Tom Cruise. But not in this movie. I really thought he played the role of this guy who fully believes in the system and how it works and has gone through all these terrible things, and then all of a sudden he's pegged as a future killer. And then he has to go on the run, and he's like, I don't even know this guy I'm supposed to kill. So his faith is shattered because he still believes in the system, but now the system's saying he's going to kill someone that he doesn't even know. So it's got to be wrong, but if he's wrong, everything he's believed in has been for nothing. And it just gets so intense down the stretch when they get closer and closer to that ticking time clock. It's like Spielberg did so great. It's like there's a ticking timer going all the way up to this moment, but it's not just about that. There's other stuff going on. There's a mystery within the mystery. That's what I love about it. So good pick, Chris.
Yes.
Hey, number 5 for me is dun 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 dun. Jaws. Yes, Jaws. The first blockbuster of the summer. It was basically a movie that did everything right for a horror movie. It scared you when it needed to scare you, kept you invested in the characters, made you want them to make it to the end of this movie, made you horrified when some of them didn't, and made you just totally invested in the characters in the story and to feel the terror of the water. I tell you, after this movie, I was afraid to swim in a lake. A lake. I don't know about you, if you know this, but there are no sharks in a lake. But it was the underwater shots, those thoughts of like when you're swimming, you don't know what's under there. The unknown of what's beneath you could kill you. And that sort of thing terrified me because this movie took advantage of that primal fear of we don't know what's beneath the water. And yeah, so Jaws exploited that fear to the nth degree. It was so well developed and handled. People keep on ragging on the shark and how fake it looks. I've never felt that. Now, it's been a while since I've seen Jaws, so maybe looking back, I could be like, it's a little fake. But I think the scenes that make you jump, you're still not like, it's a little fake. It's still, whoa, shoot. It's still that that intensity with it. It's still grabbing. And for a horror movie to really last, it needs to have you care about its story. Otherwise, once you know where all the scares are, there's nothing to bring you back to it.
Right. And boy, did they ever make this pave the way for every other monster film after this. And it's kind of a slasher film, but done in a completely different way. It has been the first, I would say, adventure horror film to be made, and it's one of the greatest. Time does this well. It doesn't lose its flavor over time. It's like wine. It gets better with time. It's the same with this movie, and I will say it's pretty awesome that people can still be talking about this film, even kids and teenagers in our generation that are growing up now should, well, once they're old enough, see this film because I think they'll be pleasantly scared.
Yeah, there's definitely the right age that you need to. Like, I think we might have saw it a little early. We might have been a little bit too young. But I think there is I think it's like when your kids like 13, 14, show them this movie, scare the pants off them. I don't know. I think it really depends on the kids and what their maturity level is. But anyways, yeah, that's why Jaws is number 5 on my list.
My number 5 is a film that I've come to love over the years, and it is the third in the Indiana Jones films, and it's Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade.
Yes, the last one. There was nothing else after. Nobody went for an alien or not alien crystal skull. Never happened.
It's a closed trilogy.
Yes, it's a The Last Crusade. It didn't lie. Kingdom of the Crystal crap. That's what that movie was.
Anyways, we don't need to talk about this. We need to talk about
the best ones, not the worst.
Now, it's been a while since I've seen this film because I saw it a lot when I was young, and I saw it so many times. I was quoting the film, and I could predict the next scenes and stuff. And that's when you gotta ease back a little bit. Just take a few 10 years off, and then revisit it later. I'm a guy that likes to revisit later. I don't like to watch over and over and over because I find it hard because if I watch it too many times, I'm just like, I already know what's going to happen. But anyways, let me just talk about this great movie. I mean, Where do I start? There's a great tank chase scene. There's the rats in Venice. Was a great idea because you're like, they always, in every single Indiana Jones film, they had some sort of animal or creature or something. And
snakes,
they went,
bugs, rats, CGI fire ants. One of these things doesn't belong here. Anyway.
Okay, anyway. So I gotta say, without saying too much, it is one of the best trilogies out of any 3 movie that you've ever seen in your life. This is one of the best 3 because it picks up right where you left off, but it also goes back a little bit. You get to see Indiana Jones when he's young, and you get to see how he is now, where the two kind of mesh together, and you understand a little bit why he's afraid of snakes and stuff, and you get all the things that that you want. You get all the chase scenes. They're upped even more, and like the places they go to, has so many obstacles, and I thought that was awesome. How many? I don't know what you call them. They're not like pitfalls, but they're kind of like that. And they have such a crazy one in this. That slices every limb off. I mean, that was just unreal.
The whole scene with the penitent man will pass and all the other traps that he has to go through, it feels almost like, thinking about it now, it's almost like a return to the first Indiana Jones. You know how it starts. You're in a room going down this long corridor with a bunch of different booby traps with a hopeful reward at the end. And that's such a good, I didn't even really think about that till now, but it's a great thing to have. And I love how it balances. Indiana Jones is amazing as a character because of a few things. Number one, he's tough as nails. He's a guy that's going to do the nitty gritty things he needs to get what he needs and win the day. But number two, he's also human, and he makes mistakes, and he falters at times. And number three, he's also smart. But I love that whole sequence because they explore each and every area of that. Because, they show how smart he is, that he kneels and does the dive and whatnot at the same time. But also, but what also I think is funny, the scene where he's just walking down, I was like, oh, there he is. It's the name of God. Jehovah. And it cuts to Sean Connery spot who's speaking at the same time. This whole time it felt very epic and like, oh, like, but in the Latin alphabet, Jehovah begins with an I. He goes, J, and falls through the floor and nearly dies right there because he makes a mistake. And I love that. It's just like the confidence in his voice, J, and it just falls right through. Harrison Ford is great. I should say right now, The Last Crusade is also my number 4. So since we're talking about it all right now, it's your number 5 and my number 4. But it's so great. As you say, the action sequences, they're amazing. They're so much fun. The Nazis are back, and they're great villains. We have this weird thing with the love interest. Maybe not as great, but it's still is a unique thing. But I love all the locations, all the locales, all the adventures, and the Holy Grail is a worthy thing to go after. I mean, you look at Temple of Doom; they're rocks. I feel like I'm Dot at the beginning of A Bug's Life, but it's a rock. You know, it's like it's still a rock. It might be a magic rock, but it's still rocks. You know, so I remember not being as impressed with that. But the Holy Grail, you know, Christ Cup, that was something to worthy of getting excited about and to have fun with. And yeah, it was just overall such a good movie. Sean Connery is also great as his dad. Such a good throwback because Steven Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie, and George Lucas was like, well, I got something even better. And that's why they did this whole thing. But yeah, oh yeah, I've talked to you. You talk some more about it because I've talked a lot.
I have to say, it was great. It was a great idea bringing Indiana Jones's dad into the picture because you get to see where he gets some things from him, and he has a fantastic way of just shining in this film. You know, he's like such a supporting character, and in this, you know, they go on a lot of adventures, but I love the scene where Indiana Jones swears, takes the Lord's name in vain, and he slaps him and says, "That's for blasphemy."
Yeah, there's so many great moments in there that they do with his dad. The moment where he accidentally shoots the back of the plane. I love that moment so much because it's just like, I've always wondered that. It's like, how did they not shoot their own planes down? And then he did, and he's like, oh, son, they got us. Or the moment where Indy punches the Nazi guy, throws him out the window, and then goes, no ticket. You know, and everyone grabs their tickets. There's a lot more funny scenes in this movie. It's all splintered throughout, but it never loses its epicness, and that's great.
So, my number 4 is the one, the only Jaws. Now, you had it a little higher on your list, but I will
technically
say
lower.
Oh, so you had a little lower on your list, but I have it right where it needs to be at number 4. One of the best films ever made. If not, anyone would put this on their top 100 as the best movie ever made. Not only does it have an adventure and horror, like I mentioned before, but it has such an amazing writing to it. I mean, based off of the book, of course, but the writing in this is so good because it just, the way it, you know deep down, you're like, as these killings are happening, you know, man, it's going to take them a long time to find this shark. And then they give you like a false hope. They get the shark. They get the shark.
They got it.
Tiger shark. And then it goes on where, you know, who's safe? No one's safe. Should you open? Should you not open the beach? Like it, and it has a lot of good points. Like you feel for the character Brody. You feel like, oh man, this burden's on his shoulders, and go ahead. Sorry. The rest of the film, of course, is them trying to figure out a way. How are they going to catch this shark? And it's on boats. And I love that it almost feels like a pirate film in that regard. I feel like that's where the adventure kicks in, and there's a lot of laughs, and there's a lot of great things that you find, and some may find the latter half of Jaws a little bit on the slow side, but I think it's still exciting in a lot of ways, because of the way it's realistic. It's realistic how they would catch them. It's not some blown out of proportion kind of thing. There's a few liberties it takes at the very end, but that's just great Hollywood film.
Like the Mythbusters go on and like, oh yeah, we tried to shoot in the container and it didn't blow up. It's like, well, who cares? You know how it ended in the book? He eventually drowns because the buoys keep him up or something like that. I don't even remember. But it's just like, come on, you want to see that explosion. You want to see it die like that. It's like, smile, you son of a boom. It's the exact perfect note to take this thing on, and you're terrified. I think the reason it's slow in it, like Steven Spielberg uses all these sort of things to his advantage. He couldn't show the shark early on, so he uses the view of the shark to scare us. Like, we can see what he's seen. Oh my gosh, he's about to kill this girl. And so he makes that scary, the unknown scary. Then we finally do see him. It's like when the movie has been at the slow pace for a while, you think it's all slow pace, and it's in that one moment where he pops up and you're like, holy shoot! It just like makes you jump out of your skin. Yeah, Jaws, still great. And one of the most simplistic but best movie scores of all time. Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Anyways.
If I'm not mistaken, John Williams got an Academy Award for that score.
Hey Google, did John Williams win an Academy Award for the movie Jaws? He did. He did.
Okay, so
check out.
Bring it back to reality here. So yeah, it paved the way for every other blockbuster and summer film that happened after that, but it is only #1 summer film, Jaws.
Yeah. Number 3 on my list is Catch Me If You Can. Now, this movie I had a hard time placing because I'm placing it over some of the greatest movies ever made. You know, it's one of those. It's like I'm placing it over Jurassic Park and all this. But I think the reason why I love Catch Me If You Can so much is because the movie is always fun for me, but it's always still telling its story and making you sympathize with the characters. You got Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, two of the biggest stars of all time together. And it's just a simple movie. We got this guy who is conning, using checks to afford himself money and keep on doing it. So we got this other guy. He's a tax guy. He's after him. But he's a kid. The guy who's, doing all the stuff, he's a kid. And I love the way that Leonardo DiCaprio moves in this movie, because there's so much stuff that he is BSing his way through the entire movie. And it's just when there's this, there's a quote was like, if you're lying and somebody calls you out on a lie or something like that, lie boldly, lie even more bolder. Don't cave, double down, and I think that's the thing with this character is like, he was like, there's a moment where he was like, he was watching TV. He was trying to pretend to be a doctor. He was watching TV, and what they said is like, do you concur, doctor? And he's like, yes, doctor, I concur. And so there's a moment where they bring somebody in and is like, oh, this guy's bleeding. Okay, do you concur? Well, he's bleeding. And he's like, so you concur? Yes. And then Leonardo DiCaprio walks away and he's like, oh, God, why didn't I concur? And the other guy thinks he's stupid, even though he doesn't know anything. Leonardo DiCaprio's character doesn't actually know anything, but he's like, he approaches everything with such confidence. There's a scene when he's younger and he goes to school and he pretends to be a substitute teacher. And I just love how he keeps doing it. he pretends to be a substitute teacher. I thought, okay, when the real substitute comes, then he's gonna get caught and he's gonna give up the game, right? Nope. The real substitute teacher comes, is like, no, I'm the replacement. I don't know why you're here. And then so she leaves and she's pissed off. And then it says how he then goes on for weeks teaching the class as the substitute teacher, and even starts to arrange field trips for them. And I'm just like, how? I don't have that capacity in me, but I love it so much. And yeah, it's just so many great performances, and I love the movie. What can I say? It's just so much fun.
You stole it would stood out for me. That was one of the best ones where he's trying to pretend to be a substitute teacher, and he sells a lie so often. But the thing I love about this is, you know how we never want to sympathize with a con man, right? Because they're just going to con us. They've lost their trust, our trust in them. But it has a way of sympathizing when he sees what's happening with his family falling apart. You realize that he's a soft edge to him. He's got a soft heart. And it really does impact you kind of emotional side of him. And it, as well as helps Tom Hanks to sympathize with him, even at the end where he leaves him a choice to continue.
Yeah.
It just shows that it's not just a regular, oh yeah, he's going to catch the bad guy and that bad guy's going to prison. No, there's more to it. And that's what I love about it. It didn't make my list for some other odd reason, but definitely a very interesting con heist type film. I'm not probably going to go down in history as one of Spielberg's best.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily. I know it's not going to be maybe this high on other people's lists. I don't care. This is my list. This is one of my favorites. If I meet someone and they haven't seen Catch Me If You Can, I'm like, you got to see this movie because it's just so much fun. You got also other great performances by Amy Adams and Christopher Walken. How can you go wrong?
My number 3 is the only Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is said to be the best adventure film ever made, and it is because it has everything that you want in an adventure film. It has obstacles that are beyond belief. It has chase scenes that you've never seen in a film ever, unless you're watching Mad Max. This is an incredible cast. You really feel for the girl that is not even really the damsel in distress, but she just gets caught in the middle of all this and gets kidnapped, of course. But you can see right off the bat she's a fighter and punches in the bones.
Miriam is definitely, out of all the women in the Indiana Jones franchise, she's the best one. She's spunky, she's fun, she's energetic. She gives Indiana Jones a good punch on his jaw as soon as he walks through the door, and she always keeps that toughness throughout. But I love how she's not just that, She's not just a tough as nails gal. She likes to have fun and to goof off, and she plays with the monkey that shows up, and she's having a good time, and she likes to have fun too, but she's just as tough as nails when she needs to be, as Indiana Jones is.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's so original in the fact that it uses Nazis as the bad guys that are trying to philological stuff in the Lost Ark. I mean, it is true that the Nazis went after painting, so why not take it even a step further? And so I think a lot going for it, and it is one of Spielberg's best. He was at his prime when he made this film.
Yeah.
Let me just say that.
Once again, majority of practical effects. And I just love the way it handles it. Like the whole truck chase scene where Indiana Jones gets in a truck. He goes on top of the truck. He goes around the truck. He goes underneath the truck. He goes all over this thing. And it's just an amazing fight sequence. And the thing that I love about Indiana Jones is the same thing I love about characters like John McClane and whatnot. I remember when it came to my top 10 favorite movie characters, I had Indiana Jones as my number one. And honestly, I don't know if anybody ever could replace him in my mind, just because he has that he's super tough and super strong and super convicted, but he's also flawed. You know, he has his own problems. Like, he's not perfect. He gets shot in one of the fights and gets beat up a bunch. There's a bunch of guys that beat the crap out of him. But there's also moments where he's just super fun. And I love the moment where the guy comes out with a big sword. Classic. Instant classic.
That guy didn't get his scene. He was supposed to have a fight scene.
Yeah, well, George was like, oh, don't worry. We'll put you on the poster. It'll be hilarious. It was so good. He's just so much fun, and but as I say, he's flawed. I like how he never really gets his prize in the end in any of his movies, except for the beginning of The Last Crusade, where he finally gets the cross that he was looking for. It belongs in a museum. But also, I just think that for Raiders of the Lost Ark, it has that right moment, and the music is great. Like tell me you don't get like your hair going up on the end when you hear that Lost Ark music. I don't even know if I can do it, but you know when they're carrying the Lost Ark, that like high pitched type of music it goes. It's so creepy. The melting of the face, terrifying, and like, yeah, it's just.
What about the skulls in the cave? Skeleton freaked me out. Spielberg always does this thing where he, to the point of like, you're freaking out because there's a lot of creepy stuff happening, and then he takes it to the max, and then it stops.
You mean with the snake coming out of the skeleton's mouth?
Yeah, like that was creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it has everything you want. Like, I remember there was a commercial for like the Indiana Jones, like this was back when it was still VHSs, the Indiana Jones collection. And I remember it was like, always remember that adventure does have a name. Indiana Jones. And it's just like, yeah, you can't say it any better than that. The name of the adventure franchise is Indiana Jones. Any other movie that tries to be an adventure movie is going to be compared to Indiana Jones in some way, shape, or form. It is the pinnacle of an adventure franchise, and they got it right the first time, I think. The Last Crusade is great. Temple of Doom has some hiccups here and there, but it still is fun. But I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best out of the whole franchise. And that's why it's number 2 on my list and number 3 on his.
That's right.
All right, so what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Jurassic Park. And let me tell you, when I first saw this, I didn't think I was going to watch it. I had to ask my parents to allow me to watch this because I always saw the cover and I was like, what's that? A T-Rex on the cover? That's probably fun. And little did I know, the beginning scene was going to have
Land Before Time.
The beginning scene was biting a guy's legs off. So yeah, I had a hard time convincing my parents. Once I did see it, I asked I was like, should I watch this? I mean, this is terrifying. When the T-Rex is going through the glass of the car and the kids are trying to hold up the glass, that was absolutely terrifying. Nothing could compare to that. I mean, they tried to do the same thing in Jurassic World, but I would say it wasn't as neat in the nighttime when the rain down. You're in the element.
I think that like the thing with Jurassic Park that has always been the biggest problem is that the movie itself was so perfect and so big, but it didn't actually lend itself all that well to sequels.
Right.
It was pretty much a tidy product. Everything fit into its nice little product there. And then anything they did felt forced. The second island in the Lost World, that's forced. The people paragliding near the island, that's forced. The Lost World, Jurassic World itself, completely forced. Then you take the sequel, now all the dinosaurs are running loose. How is that not forced? It's just like everything else feels forced, and that's why it's never reached the pinnacle of that peak of the first Jurassic Park.
As I say, originality is always the best thing.
Yes, you always say that.
No, I don't. But I will say it not only was a film that everyone on this earth has finally seen by this point. It's a film that is considered the best thriller ever made. It's a thriller, and it has, once again, adventure.
Yep.
Mixed with the other genre of suspense in some spots, but I do think it's a thriller for the most part, because you do have raptors trying to chase after people and kill them, and so I will say everything from the CGI amazing to the fact that they're trying to get this park up and running, and everything's a disaster. And then Hammond's like, well, maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can fix it. And it's like, no fixing, man. You're already done that. Dinosaurs are all loose now.
Yeah, part of me thinks is like the guy who played Dennis Nedry and who played Newman in the Seinfeld is like, it's like that guy will never have a role that important in a movie ever again. But what I wouldn't give to have that role, just a tiny, tiny role in a movie that changes movie history.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's definitely can hang his hat on that. But Spielberg had a couple of movies were right in the right time. He was in his prime for directing during this time, and he knew exactly what to do. I believe he made Schindler's List either during the same time or after Jurassic Park.
It was during. I remember in his interview, he'd be like, "It was kind of weird to go to making a movie about the Holocaust to making a movie about dinosaurs," but yeah.
Yeah. So, say it is my film. I think it's at my number. I think it's on my number 9 of best films of all time.
Wow.
But it's definitely one of Spielberg's best, and he can always be remembered by it.
Now, for me, my number 1 is a movie that might not be on most people's number 1 of Spielberg's best. I mean, it'd be on the list, I think, but I'm not sure how many people would have this at number 1. It's just a movie that hit me in every great way possible. I love the story. I love the effects. I love the world. I love the acting. I love every single thing about it. And that is Minority Report. Minority Report is a movie that had me conflicted, It had me conflicted the whole time. It's like, in this world where you can predict the future, when you can predict these killings, when you can predict murder, and you can stop it before it happens, what shouldn't you do? Or shouldn't you do that? Or do you give complete blind faith in their visions of the future? Or maybe there's something different happening. People's lives could be changed, even slightly. And that's what I love about the movie Minority Report, is just the fact that It takes this guy who believes in the system that it's always 100% correct, and then it is put as this next killer. But the thing that makes it more and more entertaining is like as the film goes on and you're trying to uncover the mystery of what is happening to this guy in this world and with this system and why is it predicting he's going to kill this guy that he's never met, is that when it gets down to it, you actually think he might do it. You know, Tom Cruise portrays it so well about this guy that lost his son. And when he's looking through those photos and he sees the one with his son in it, and he's like, I am going to kill this man. The look on his face of like glee and joy that he's going to do is like terrifying to me. Like, and it's just the one thing that Tom Cruise always brings to a role that is his best asset is intensity. He brings so much intensity to this role, and like the scene where he's like fighting the guy, and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" It's like, he's some kid's father. His name was Sean. You know, just like yelling the emotion right out, and you feel the intensity in it. And also the actress that plays the precog in that scene too. She is phenomenal in that whole sequence where he kidnaps her and takes her from the place. Is so good because we like these guys, we've almost not seen them as people, and then all of a sudden you realize of course they are, and then you take them out of the tank, and like the whole adventure they're going on, it's just so amazing. And I love the way that it just handles the world and the characters, the eye scans that give you product placement ideas that talk directly to you. That's going to be a thing one of these days. It's definitely going to be a thing if they can perfect that technology. You know, it's like they basically got it with your scanning what type of internet searches you have. The future is fun. I love the cars that can go up and down the walls, but they're all auto-driven. I love everything about it. I love the future tech of the weapons that don't actually kill people, but they have like a blast. It's a science fiction movie, but it feels in a world that makes me believe it could be real.
Mm-hmm. I will add to say that it's one of those films that it just, you definitely feel for like precogs because they're treated like aliens, and they're just in this tank. And then the more you fail main character, the main pre, you realize that she's more human as time goes on, and especially but she has a very like spooky way of talking and predicting, because she's talking about your future, and it's like it's so unnerving to hear all the things, but she does it so well, and she's got a really good performance from the actress.
Yeah, she's just so good because it's like you think the mystery is around Tom Cruise's character and what he's going through. But as you get closer and closer to the end, you realize that it all revolves around the precogs. It all revolves around the three people in that tank, and what it's all about them. And you don't really realize that until the end, and then it all fits together perfectly. We also got performances by Colin Farrell, Max von Sydow. He is great. But as you say, like the way that she tells that possible future story with his son, that is just so unnerving, but also like a happy but sad moment at the same time. And I love the future technology, the way that he's able to use the thing to zoom into this stuff. I love how, you know, when they get these images, it's like a puzzle they have to unravel and figure out the whole mystery of how it happened. But it's just, it's perfect. It's really perfect. And honestly, there's a moment in this film that had me like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And it's when it's when the finale of that Leo Crow scene happens. When that ends, I was like, oh no, this is terrible. Everything's terrible. Everything is terrible right now. This is awful. But yeah, so Minority Report is my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. It's my favorite science fiction movie of all time. just because of how well it's handled and how well it tells its story. And yeah, what can I say? Just my favorite.
Well, my favorite, my number one Steven Spielberg film has got to be Hook. When he made Hook. Yes.
No.
When he made Hook, he knew what he was doing. Because, yes, it's considered a family film. Yes, it's kind of considered to be not as serious, but I think it affects you in a lot of different ways. Let me just... Okay, just hang on a sec. You're going to have to cut this out. Yes.
Love you.
Okay, where was I? So,
Look,
let me just talk about
different ways.
Let me just talk about a scene that reached inside and grabbed me. Did you have to turn that on?
You're gonna have to remember?
Yes, I would have. So let me talk about a scene that reached out and grabbed me. The scene where this is just after Peter Pan's kids have been taken by Hook, but it's such a mysterious thing. You don't know how they've been taken. You see the doors opening, you see smoke, but you don't see him, and it's just like, but that's a fantasy. That can't be real. Really real? You don't know. They're missing. They left a note, a ransom note, and so. And Wendy is talking to Peter, and she opens a book and says to Peter, "Peter, don't you know who you are?" And she points at a drawing of Peter Pan, and that gave me chills. It was such a haunting scene because it made the fantasy in that moment a reality of something that we know existed. You know, we know the character, and that's what I think is awesome about the film. Is it made me want to go and be a director because of the fantasy is so good, and like they stay in the reality for a long time. Where he goes to see Wendy. It's at the house, and we don't go to Neverland right away. And I like the film that way because it grounds you in reality first before it takes you into the fantasy. But the buildup is amazing. And then when you finally get there, yeah, it's a little bit comical because you got pirates trying to kill Peter Pan and he's got to dress up. Yeah, it's a little bit lighter. When you
There's
finally
still
meet
some
Hook,
dark humor moments too, though.
there's a lot of dark humor
I
moments.
love the moment where he's like, "How much?" and he's writing a check, and Hook shoots it, and the guy behind him just dies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scenes that are maybe kind of out there. Like he falls off the boat, and he goes into the sea, and there's mermaids there, and then he's like climbing up a mountain. It's some of it's like, what were you thinking when you wrote this scene?
Well, I think they were just trying to pay tribute to the mermaids in the book.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's like all of a sudden now they're hoisting up a mountain. It is a little weird, but I think that, as I said about Hook earlier, the thing that I think it does is it makes you want to, like, as a kid, it makes you excited to be a kid, and as an adult, it makes you want to be a kid.
Yes. Because as the story goes on, you see where Peter went and how he grew up. He lost he lost his way because he wanted to be a father, and that transcends so much to.
There you are, Peter. Sorry.
Yeah, that transcends much, and like Robin Williams is usually he's out there, he's ad-libbing all the time, but in this I felt he had lived, but at the right times, but he played it straight, and he was serious. And oh man, I can't say enough about this other than the fact that it was a magical time when Steven Spielberg made this film. The writer came together, everyone came together to make this, and it is my favorite fantasy movies of all time.
Wow.
One of my favorite.
Chris, we literally did a video called our top 10 favorite fantasy films of all time together back in the day. Like, oh wait, I remember what was number one. It wasn't Hook. It was Batman Returns.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not a fantasy movie, Chris. It's a
doesn't
superhero action film.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't even come close to a fantasy. What was my number 2?
I don't remember. You'd have to go back and look. Maybe it was Hook. But anyways, so yeah, there we have it. Our top 10 favorite Spielberg directed movies. Put what your favorites are in the comment below. If you disagreed with any, we'd love to hear it. Just be civil, be kind. He's an amazing film director. Deserves all the praise in the world. Give him 3 more Academy Awards. He probably deserves it. And,
I cannot wait to see West Side Story.
Yeah,
Let's
that's going to
see
be
what he's gonna
interesting.
do with that.
I don't think he's directed a musical before, has he?
No.
It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. In any case, I am LazerDude.
And I am ChrisFilmBaker, 123.
You know you can edit your name now. Anyways, so thanks for watching, and see you later.
Be sure to check out some of these other videos on my channel. And wait for more coming soon.